How are you?
I'm good, Andy. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm just back from a 10-day shoot in the southwest of England, and I'm just getting over the severe baking in the sun.
10 days.
Oh well, it was a really nice shoot, but the southwest is a little bit warmer than the rest of the country, and we were
Right.
looking at weird legends and folklore and things like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
Tintagel Castle, Glastonbury Tour, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we just got baked. Every single space we were in seemed to be without shade. And me being from Celtic extraction and a registered sun dodger, I was
Wow.
hard put to it, but I survived. Back to 50 and beyond. I'm still here to tell the
So
tale.
where are you now?
London, just outside
Oh, you're
London.
in London. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. How about yourself?
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
that's along the Lake Erie, the so-called north coast
Mm.
of US. Been to England a couple of times. It's been a few years. Last time I did a drive all the way around um, England, Wales, Scotland, went up to Loch Ness.
Oh wow.
Um, fun trip. Time before that, I have good friends in Cornwall in Polruan,
Mm.
so we went and stayed with them for a week, and that was gorgeous. Absolutely wonderful trip. So
It's beautiful. I keep telling people here, because of course, being British, we're always heading out somewhere else, thinking that's where it's at. And
right.
I keep telling people there's just so much, and most of us don't even quite click that we live on an island surrounded by coast, because we're not at the beach every
Really?
day. Well, we
Well,
do,
yeah.
but it's big enough not to know unless you're in those areas. And yeah, it's just funny. It's just funny. I was saying to a friend on the shoot as we were sort of nearing the sea. Ah, the sea. I got up next to it. I miss the sea. And he said, "Why wouldn't you see the sea?" I said, "I live in London." He said, "That's not far from the sea." But you don't understand. It's not in my general scope every day. I'm in the big
Right.
smoke, city of Satan, trying not to
Yeah.
shove people down the escalator when they're walking on the wrong side. That's how we are. Yes.
That's
So,
funny. That's funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I, I can relate to that because we live near Lake Erie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you don't go north, you forget that the only time people remember Lake Erie is there is in the wintertime when we have a snowstorm that blows over the
Ah,
lake and picks
okay.
up water and then dumps just tons and tons of snow all over the place, which is called the lake effect. Um,
Okay, wow. It's
so
interesting.
yeah, but
Wherever you are, wherever you live, it's normal. So when I worked in central London every day and I get off at Waterloo and walk the rest of the way past, Trafalgar Square, past Buckingham Palace,
oh
and it was the same when I lived in Barcelona. My metro was underneath Sagrada Familia. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, first week, Sagrada Familia, 2 months in, like, you know, there it is. That's gonna work.
Yeah,
And whatever is normal to you is boring. That's
that's
just
it.
how
That's
how
right.
it
Yeah.
works. Yeah, it's just how it works.
What
But I
what do
wanted
you
to.
do for a living?
Well, I'm
What
I'm in healthcare
okay.
management. So I've been working in private and NHS care, sort of intermittently between the two, for about 13
Yeah.
years. Yeah, for about 13 years. Of course,
Oh
the last
wow.
three were a bit busy and exciting. We're over that now,
Oh God.
fortunately.
Yeah. I'll bet.
And
Yes.
yeah,
Good,
I mean, I
good credit
just
to you that you're still doing it.
well, look, I
You know.
basically got the red flashy thing and told myself something else happened during that period of time, and I've moved on.
Oh,
Basically,
okay.
yeah, basically, that's how I feel about it. Um, I wanted to talk to you for a long time because I'm a fan of the mysterious universe,
Oh,
looking
good.
side and other bits and pieces, and just now and again, I look at the articles, and there's a couple of great writers there. One of my own countrymen, obviously Nick Redfern and
Oh
others.
yeah.
But there's just something about your articles. I like them. I love the taglines. I love the content, and I love how you tend to put it all together, giving us known facts or information that's involved in every sighting, and still yet making it light and entertaining. And I think that's
Okay.
a hard, that's a, that's a difficult tightrope to balance upon, to please all of those corners of the paranormal and cryptozoological
Yeah.
world. So I thought we'd just maybe start with what attracted you to this genre. What made Paul Seaburn say, "Yeah, it's paranormal subjects for me all the way. This is what I want to find out about."
Okay. Um, Gee, we only have an hour to talk about this.
Well, you can go on, but there's no
I
limit. But
know.
I thought it'd set you an hour to give you an out if you wanted it.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a long, strange trip. Um, I'll try to condense it and get to the paranormal. But
yeah.
my my education is in mathematics, so I have a science degree in mathematics. I went into that field in order to get into the computer business, which
Mm-hmm.
was, you can tell I'm a little gray. The way you got into computers was through mathematics, not through
Mm-hmm.
computer science. Um, I was lucky enough to be hired right out of school by two great computer companies that were leaders in their field, in one in small computers and one in mainframes. And they gave me the opportunity to work in sales and management, tech support, training. It was wonderful. Um, During that time, my hobby, I lived in Houston, Texas at the time. Uh, my hobby was comedy. I've always liked humorous television shows and funny movies and comedians, and that was in the 80s during the comedy boom of that time frame. And Houston had a number of comedy clubs where people could go not just for a show, but also to get up on stage themselves. And so I tried that. I took a class, and as part of the class, the graduation was to get up on stage. I got up on stage. I got some laughs. Very addictive. Very, very addictive. So once you get that feeling of making people laugh, you want it more. Unfortunately, I had a really good job, a day job, which was paying all the bills and paying for a couple of cars and a mortgage. The comedy business doesn't pay much at all. But what happened was as I was working at various clubs, whenever I could, comedians who knew me would say, we know you're not going to do this for a living. You have some really good jokes. Would you sell them to us?
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea that comedians even did that. So I said, sure. This would give me a chance to stay in the business without having to give up my day job. And I ended up doing that. And then as the businesses do, the company that I was working for went from being a high flyer to just almost bankrupt. And we were going through layoffs. We were acquired by other companies, hostile takeovers. And so I asked my wife at the time. I was starting to write for television at the time. I was by that time I had a job working for the Tonight Show for Jay Leno.
Oh wow!
He had just taken over as the guest host in like around 1988, somewhere around there, and he was only on one night a week, and he needed just a couple of writers to write his monologue for him, and he hired me and a couple of other people who weren't even in L.A. I begged my wife. I said, "Look, this is my chance. Give me a year, and if I don't make it in a year, I'll go back to selling computers. I know I can get a job doing that." And God bless her, she said, "Sure." So that was in 1992. So that's 30 years ago. I'm still a writer. I never went back to the computer business. I've been fortunate enough through my association with the Tonight Show to work for other television shows. I worked for I wrote for a children's television show, a children's comedy show. You name, I've done everything, Andy. I was looking through my list, because everybody asked me that. Well, what all did you write? I've written greeting cards. I do trivia, which was beneficial for me as when I went into working for Mysterious Universe. I did a lot of trivia books, joke books. I worked for magazines. I even one of my favorites back before there were memes. There were T-shirts and buttons,
Mm.
and I had a job writing T-shirt slogans to
Okay.
encourage people to use condoms, and it
Wow.
was it was by a condom maker. So
Okay.
good job. Let me tell you
Hey, I mean, yeah, always popular.
yeah, I always had a motto, a rule of never turning down work. So that got me into quite a few weird
Mm.
positions. Um, so I'll stop there and mention that when I was a kid, a very young kid, and I learned how to read, one of my favorite books was a collection of Ripley's Believe It or Not cartoons. I wish I still had the book, but
Mm.
when I cleaned out my parents' home, I couldn't find it. I was always interested in weird stories, weird animals, UFOs, strange tales, that sort of thing. And Ripley at the time was like, we revere Charles Fort today.
Mm.
Ripley was there before Charles Fort. He was the promoter of the weird back in the days when I was growing up. So I've always had that interest. I've always liked to read books about UFO, but never saw it as a career or of that nature. Um, so going through the comedy business, the comedy writing business, eventually I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio from Houston, and I was looking for work because some jobs fell through, and I happened to come. I was working for a comedy news service at the time,
Mm.
writing funny. We were just talking about what you just said, taking regular news stories and punching them up to make
Mm.
them more palatable to the audience. I used to teach. I used to teach this to business people. Um, uh, humor is a great way to sell your product.
Mm.
All the sales books say that. Nobody knows how to do it. They're insulting or they're sarcastic, and it's you want to have fun. If you're having fun presenting your product, the people that you're talking to will accept it more, and they'll have fun buying it and taking your money, and giving you money, and that's what you want, money. So uh, I was doing that, and I came across Mysterious Universe, and they just happened to be looking for writers at the time, and I sent the guys my information, and I sent them some videos that I had done, and they said, "This is what we're looking for, except we'd like for you to do it about UFOs and Bigfoot and ghost and all the weird
Mm.
science in that." And they're in Australia. I'm in the United
Mm.
States. So I said, pay me in American money and pay me on time, and let's see how it works.
Uh-huh.
And that was in 2013. So it must have worked
Wow.
out okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know myself, many of my colleagues have enjoyed it very much all along the way, because I think there's something about being paid to do something that really gets you deep diving for that extra bit of information that sometimes people who are doing this as a sort of a job of passion, if you will, don't find. Your interests direct you instead of financial needs. And I think that's a philosophy I've tried to adapt to in the last 2 years, because Andy's always been. I was previously a musician, singer for about 30 years, and
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, and yeah, that's a job of passion. It's something you're always throwing money at. So it
Right.
made sense that I would suddenly drift into cryptozoology and throw my money at something else instead.
Okay.
Yeah, and it seems to have. We're around about. So we're on a balance at the moment, about 50-50. Some's coming
Okay.
in, some's going out, and that's acceptable to me for the time being. About that, actually,
That's a
I
good way of looking at it, and I
yeah,
like it.
yeah,
I might go to that.
and breaking even. I mean, people have
Yeah.
suddenly started to pay me now and again. The books are selling a bit. Sometimes when
Well,
people ask me to do some
congratulations on that, by the
filming,
way. Yeah,
Mm.
they
They
look
are
interesting.
occasionally. But I hope they are. People seem to like them. And that's unexpected. Same with the podcast, because I don't expect anybody to be listening. It's kind of like talking
Yeah,
into the wind on one of these late night trucker radio stations.
right.
Yeah. I think there were some people in Alaska, fishermen, in fact, a fishing couple. I stopped the podcast in 2019 for about 6 months, and they said, "Can you do some more episodes?" I said, "Why?" They said, "When we're out there fishing in the Bering Strait, we like to listen to you talk." I
Whoa.
said, "Really?" I didn't realize anybody was, out there in the straight listening. Okay, I'll do some more episodes, because they were really only ever an act of nepotism, talking to people I'm interested in. Anyway, enough about me. Getting back
That's
onto
funny.
you. Um,
I have the same experience with my podcast. I do a weekly podcast as well,
yes.
Weird News, and uh, every once in a while we get a spike in India. I said, now
Wow.
why are people in India listening to this, guy in Cleveland, Ohio, talking about weird news and science? But you don't know. You just don't know,
No.
and it's you're right. It is a job of passion, but it helps to keep in your head that people really do listen to this and they enjoy it. It'd be nice if there were better ways for us to find that out. But the
Mm,
podcast business, it's so hard to gather that information without, as you said, spending a lot of money. So and it's not the immediate feedback of stand-up comedy, which is what I was
mm,
doing, and music, which is what you were doing.
yeah.
It's a tough. Many people don't realize that the arts, the writing, the performance art, really are very difficult jobs. Very
Mm,
difficult jobs.
very hard.
Yeah, and until you try it, and you go through periods where the passion doesn't necessarily carry you through, and you've got to think, this
Mm,
is still a job. I got to get up and I got to do this, and
mm,
then it comes
absolutely.
back. It comes back. It comes back, and that
Mm,
I get into, just since you're a fan of Mysterious Universe, that sometimes I get into the psychological
mm,
uh, side of the paranormal world. I really like looking at that, and looking at how people think. People who believe in Bigfoot, who believe in
mm,
ghost, have other different ways of thinking than other people. I don't want to say normal. I hate using those words. We have different ways of thinking. We may have something in our brains that taps into something that's going on around us that we can't
mm.
see, that allows us to tap, allows a musician. I use Paul McCartney as my favorite example.
Oh,
Uh,
good example.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have a vacuum cleaner in his head that he puts all this stuff into him, that none of us others have. Maybe John Lennon had it. I don't know.
Mm,
But he has definitely realized that he has it and used it to create such a wonderful career and body of work that he has.
oh,
So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, if I think everybody has that ability in some area. There's something that you can tap into, and we don't promote the idea of looking for that. Just like you said, look for your passion, look for the things that
Mm,
that you're interested in. you know, it's a cliche to say you follow your passion and follow your passion and the money will follow. Baloney. It doesn't always work that way. But sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. And I tell people, I have a lot of friends in the computer business because I spent almost 20 years in the computer business. Um, they all have ulcers. I don't.
mm.
Oh, so
Yeah, well, exactly, because you have a passion. And I think it's a similar thing with me. I'm late 40s, and I've known people all my life, those who have had a passion on the side, and they've been responsible working people at the same time. And perhaps the passion didn't pay, but gave them a lifeline into that childlike world of mystery and possibility that we lose. And I say to my children also a lot sometimes, be a child for as long as you can, because you're an adult for most of your life. You know, don't grow up too fast. Stay a child as long as you can. And I think it's the same with adults if they have passion. It's that childlike wonder that keeps you hoping and keeps you steady. In the crazy world that's out there, you can hit into your passion,
That's
and
it.
perhaps Bigfoot is, a fringe phenomenal, UFOs or fairies even these days, which is seeing something of a revival, vampires, everything like that. But it's something curious and interesting to keep you in that wonderful fantasy world, and at least hoping in something else other than what we know to be real.
Right, right. Wonder. Excellent word. Excellent word.
Mm.
We don't use that word often enough. And um, the paranormal world gets ridiculed, gets picked on quite a bit. And I try to defend it as much as I can. But I find that people who are interested in what you write about, the beast of Great Britain,
Mm.
things that I write about, the UFO sighting, whether you believe them or not, the fact that you're interested and you have that wonder keeps
Mm.
you keep curious. We don't emphasize curiosity enough, and so just because you don't believe that there's space aliens, or you don't
Mm.
believe that there's a beast living in the sewer, um, you can still be curious about it. You can still be
Mhm.
curious. You can still look in the sewer. You can still look up in the sky, see these things, and say, "God, I wonder what that is." Okay, if we would say that once a day, I think we'd live in a much greater world. Thank you very much, and that's all I'm going to say.
No, no, it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean but that's why I wanted Paul Seaburn on this. And I think from reading your articles, that's the kind of thing I picked up. I've said to people a lot of times, it's not when somebody gives me a sighting, it's not my right to believe or disbelieve it. I just have to take the sighting, ask a couple of questions, and investigate and see if it holds any water. Can I feasibly report this? Does it fit within the genre? Are there any red flags, etc., etc.? And if so, if not, why not just put it forward and let people make of it what they will, with some perhaps common theories
Right.
that surround it. The pervading paradigms of our time, and that's the wonder. It's all about that. I used to defend the indefensible at the beginning, the British Bigfoot genre or Nessie or all of the rest of these things. I thought, don't defend the indefensible, just enjoy it,
There
and
you
let
go.
people make up their own minds.
There you go. Excellent. Excellent.
I do have a question to ask you about
Oh, sure.
UFOs,
I
actually,
don't want to
because
monopolize. Yeah.
no, 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 it's great, but I think your take on this would be really good. Which is, they are dominating the news cycle these days, UFO phenomena, and even governments are starting, or some of their whistleblowers are starting to admit that they may in fact be real. Now, why do you think that's become sort of a very current thing at the moment? Why do you think we're at this stage? This was the swamp gas, the
Yeah.
the weather balloons, in as far as governments were concerned, for so very long, and now you have the Israeli head of their space agency saying, yes, they're real and we've met aliens, and other people of similar standing coming out and saying the same thing. What do you think's going on?
Oh boy. No,
It's really set you up there, Paul. Sorry.
I don't get. I, I'm the current news guy for Mysterious Universe. I've always been a news junkie. That's what got me
Mm.
involved with comedy. That's what got me the job with Jay Leno on the Tonight Show, because I like to read the news and say funny things about it. I don't have as much interest in the historical
Mhm.
aspects of UFOs, for example, going back to Roswell and
Mm.
what might have happened before that and after that. However, um, I if you want to look at a time period that may be similar to what we're going through now, the time period after World War II
Mm.
uh, is perfect. There were a lot of people with money, with time. There was time on their hands that they could do different things. Okay, so they were coming out of the bunkers, like you guys were in
Yeah.
England, coming out of the bunkers and looking around and saying, "Wow, look at what's going on." At the same time, there were they were seeing planes and aerial phenomena that they may not have seen before. If you have never seen something before, your first reaction is it's weird, it's strange, maybe it's not real, it's something odd, until you find out that no, that's a plane that the Germans were working on or somebody else was working on. So I think we're going through that period right now because of an escalation in global conflicts, and it goes all the way back to before the Iraq War, back in that time period. I think that's when the United States started escalating testing fighters that we still, as the general public, don't know about. So, the stuff that you guys saw in, I know I did an article about it recently, the one that was the best UFO picture of all time. I can't remember which
I
one
think I
that
know what
was.
we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a good possibility that was a secret, a classified aircraft and not a UFO. Very good possibility, but we don't have we ultimately we don't have proof yet. I think there's a lot of that going on. So I think that's one aspect. The other is that we have lost trust. We have really lost trust in institutions. We've lost trust in religion. We've lost trust in a lot of things. So we start thinking, God, everybody's lying to us. It's look at this, look at that. They must be hiding stuff from us. It can't be this bad, or it can't be this good. They must be hiding stuff from us. This is a conspiracy theory. I don't want to call it nonsense, but the amount of it is disturbing. Yeah, it's disturbing. So I think that lack of trust. Now that takes you to the third part. So that may explain like 95% of what we see. Then there's the other 5% that we are now getting what we think are leaks saying, hey, the government says, the government is now saying that it's possible that there might be aliens, and we may have picked up a crashed UFO, and it could be in this building, and this person may have seen it. So it's all couched just in those protective words that do not allow us to say, there it is. That's it right there. That guy saw a UFO. And that guy, I was working on a story. I'm working on a book myself, and I was working on a story about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein went to Area 51 in early 1950s, I believe, and allegedly, now this was given the story was written by a student of his who accompanied him, which scares me. Accompanied him to Area 51, a college student. He's teaching at Princeton.
It sounds like such an Einstein thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a female. I don't remember her name. She wrote her original story under a pseudonym, and so they went under the cover of going to a conference in Chicago. So they get to Chicago. She gets out to go to the conference. He says, we're not going to the conference. And then these people in trench coats, supposedly, it's a good story. I love telling good stories. So allegedly in the trench coats came out and said, get into this little plane. We're taking you someplace. We're not telling you where we're going.
Wow.
She says they're in the plane for a long time. They finally land. They're out in the middle of the desert. They're taken to a building. And according to her, they were taken inside. Now, we're going through all these secret paper stuff and classified information in the United States now. Security clearance. There was no such thing as security clearance back then. This student, college student, scary thing.
Yeah, she's his plus one. She's his plus one.
They go into Area 51 to a secret building, an unknown purpose building in Area 51, and she claimed that She and Albert Einstein saw living aliens. She saw 5 of them. They
Wow.
were the standard grays,
Hmm.
um, 5 feet tall, large head, wearing jumpsuit kind of things. And then they also went into another room where she saw a crashed spacecraft. Now she said Albert Einstein got to see more than she did, but
Hmm.
she claims this college student, because
They were
she was
living
holding.
aliens or they were corpses?
No, they were they
Bodies.
were
Oh,
alive.
living.
They were
Okay.
alive. They were
Yeah.
living aliens. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, before she left, she was told, she didn't have to sign a non-disclosure. She was just threatened. You can't tell this to anybody.
Yeah.
So that was in 1951, I think. I have to
Wow.
look at. She didn't tell anybody until the 1990s, and she didn't do it on her own. Somebody heard the story, and tracked her down, and convinced her that you need to tell this story. And
Yeah.
she was already getting old, and
Okay.
and and
Like,
decided
what have you
that,
got to lose?
what do you got to lose? That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's not a well-known story. And
No, I've
okay,
never heard of it.
so
Mm.
yeah, so you think, okay, well, but it's Albert Einstein. Would Albert Einstein lie to us? Sure, he would. If he's told he's supposed to, of course
Yeah.
he would. So so um so it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I certainly want to believe. I truly
Mm.
in my heart I want to believe. I do believe that we're not alone in the universe. I
Sure.
would like to believe that that there's other species that are sophisticated enough technologically to be able to travel much farther than we can. That also scares me because
Mm.
I believe I believe in the Big Bang Theory. And my simple explanation, I love simple explanations. My simple explanation of the Big Bang Theory is there was this little ball of matter and it exploded. So we are all part of that little ball of matter. So
Oh,
we're all
okay.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
same matter, which means that if there are other species in the world, they came from that same ball of matter. So they're going to be a lot like us, don't you
Hmm.
think? They're going to be a lot like humans. Humans scare the heck out of me. You know, we we invaded all kind of countries.
Yeah.
Well, we when we say we colonized, that's such a another nonsense word. We didn't
Mm.
colonize. We did very terrible things when we went
Mm.
from place to place. These species came from the same matter. It's entirely possible that they're going to do the same thing when they come here, if they're not here already.
Mm.
So it's so
That's an
difficult.
interesting thought. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Because we're not really, if you came to this house, I mean, the world being the house at the moment, you would see that it's in disorder. And any
yeah,
superior intellect could see quite clearly that divide and conquer strategies work quite well over the years. And why not go for something like that
sure,
again and just step in and
sure.
pick up the pieces?
There's a word I don't use anymore, and it comes up a lot when in archaeology,
Mm.
and that word is pagans.
Mm.
We came and there were pagans in that country, in North America or in
Mm.
Australia, wherever we went, and the roots of pagans really means that these are people who don't believe in the religion that you believe in. Well, that doesn't make them inferior to you. That doesn't
Mm.
make them inferior human beings. That doesn't make them non-human beings. That just
No.
means they don't believe in the same thing you do because they grew up in a different world. We are pagans. We will be the pagans to extraterrestrials. It's entirely possible. And if that's the case, we should be prepared for that. And not in a warring state, but I don't at that
I
point,
just,
what else? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what can you say about that? That's happened, years over years and years and years. And I was just trying to think of the poem, the famous Irish priest resistant that the British quoted. Remember, it's something like Troy is gone, and even Tara is now green fields. Perhaps one day too, the English will be no more, or something like that. That's not a direct
Oh,
quote.
wow. I'm
Yeah, I
impressed.
did. I
That's
have
close
to
enough.
find.
Yeah.
Mm. Are you familiar with it?
No.
No, I
But
had
it
it
sounds
the other.
good.
I think he was executed by the British or something like that. Anyway, and he'd written this poem just before. Anyway,
Yeah.
it really brings it home, and not to get political in any sense at all, but us, all of us living here in the advanced West at the moment, there are many elements of that fall of Rome,
Oh yeah.
epoch about where we are in our societies, and without making any judgment on anybody in it, but yes, those elements are really, really strong at the moment. I just keep thinking about that. Well, perhaps
Well,
something will come
here,
along and say, "Hey, it's
there,
time. It's time to sink into history and bring something new along." Yeah.
definitely think of history. And here's something else. I've ended a number of my stories with the request to think about this, and that is, and we're talking about UFOs here,
Mm,
and the big story, the first big story of our generation was the Tic Tac UFOs,
mm,
um, which came out like in 2017, but it happened 10 or 15 years before that. And then slowly but surely, we started hearing about other military encounters with um, aerial phenomena that performed in ways that were far beyond what we allegedly. The question is asked: none of these shot down. Why
mm,
was there no engagement, no physical engagement, other than radar tracking, other than visual tracking? It didn't happen. It didn't happen in 2008. It didn't happen in 2017. It
oh,
never happened until the balloons. Until the balloons.
the balloons.
And so, the balloons were such a they were
Oh,
they
the
were
memes. The memes are
inflated out
wonderful.
of
Yeah,
proportion.
inflated. Yeah, exactly.
I think I think the powers that be took advantage of
Mm,
the fact that they knew that these were balloons.
yeah.
I think that, I always say way up above us, there's a communication level between the uber rich people and the leaders of the major countries and the leaders of the major corporation, where they plan stuff out. Well, let's do this.
Mm,
Let's see what
yeah.
happens here. And I think that the leaders knew that there wouldn't be. They wouldn't start a world war if they shot down one of the balloons. Okay. So, but they could get some advantage from it. They could
Mm,
get some publicity. They could make it look like, oh, we're big, tough uh,
yeah.
military protectors of the United States or whatever it might be, Canada, because they went over Canada as well. Um, yeah, and it was a distraction. It was a
Of
distraction.
course.
Distracted us from important things. And on my podcast, my motto, you mentioned my motto on Mysterious Universe, which
Mm,
is the mysterious doesn't have to be serious. On my podcast, my motto is real news, sometimes strange, always funny. Uh,
mm,
I never talk about politics. I never talk about business, religion. I avoid all those things because they're distractions.
yeah.
I like fun, interesting, meaty, weird stories, and that's all I focus on. So, but that's what we are. We're distracted. Conspiracy theories, if we want to go back to that, are distractions. They keep us from thinking, but from wondering. I love that word. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I'm gonna use that all the time now. I did from wondering. It distracts us from wondering. We're like
Mm,
dogs. We start to wonder, and all of a sudden there's a squirrel over here, and we
mm.
look over at the squirrel, and that the powers that be know our psychology. They know our psychology.
Of course,
Take
and
advantage.
look, there's plenty to distract us from in the news cycle. And again, I try to avoid politics as
Yeah.
much as possible. But yeah, I suppose we're all in a sort of a hyper political cycle in the world at the moment, where there's a lot more politics than we used to seeing before, and there's a lot more distraction. And I guess that was my wonder. That was my wondering with the UFOs. Well, this doesn't seem like the kind of thing they want us to know about if it was the way they say it is. So because they're saying it, I'm cautious
Uh-huh. Right.
as to what it could be. But then even that, there's a double bluff possibility with that too. So I throw my hands up and say,
Well,
well, if they come and they hear, we'll deal with that when they rock up, and steal our cheeseburgers or whatever. And yeah, and until then, there's plenty more to be getting on with. There's something else, Paul, as well. I noticed you cover a lot of cryptids, and in my deep diving into your articles over the years, there's so many cryptids stories that you've covered that it's really hard to pick one out. But I tend to have favorites of my own stories. Do you have like 2, 3 particular favorite cryptid encounters that you've talked about over the years, and if so, why?
Okay, I have two. Good question. Good question. The first one is the Loch Ness Monster, because of its history. I didn't know the history of the Loch Ness Monster until I started working for Mysterious Universe and going back to the saint who first allegedly saw the monster in 500 something. I love the Loch Ness Monster, not so much because it's a monster that I believe that it's going to be found, but that so much money is being made as a result of the Loch Ness Monster. I think that is just, I wish that Lake Erie, where I live, has a monster called Bessie.
Bessie, yes, I know Bessie.
Yeah. But the play on Nessie, yeah, and it's based on a sturgeon, a lake sturgeon, which Lake Erie used to have quite a few of, and ship captains and sailors would see them, and they suddenly became the monster. Why we don't take advantage of that, I don't know. But that's one, and then the other one is Bigfoot. Part for two reasons. Partly because in the United States you just can't escape Bigfoot. Bigfoot is everywhere. Every state has a Bigfoot organization. Every state has Bigfoot sightings. My state has Bigfoot sightings. Now, I live in Cleveland, in Northeast Ohio.
Oh, okay.
My home, my house is a little over 100 yards from a national park. It's called the Cuyahoga Valley National Forest. And I take my walks through it every day. The second best Bigfoot howl, allegedly Bigfoot howl, was recorded in that national park, just a couple miles from where I live. And it happened while I was working for Mysterious Universe. So I got a chance to write about a local story. Awesome. And it's your typical story. The guy had audio equipment with a motion detector, and he went out one day and it was tripped, and he listened to the audio, and it was nothing that he had ever heard of before in this park, which has coyotes. We get an occasional bear. We have a lot of dogs. We have drunk people yelling. So all the things that could be Bigfoot but aren't. So he took that recording to the local park system, and they listened to it, and they're more in tune to the animals, and they said they couldn't identify it. So they said, sure, yeah, it's Bigfoot. So then he took it to one of the Bigfoot organizations, the Bigfoot Research Organization.
Oh, BFRO, yeah.
And they gave it to a Bigfoot audio specialist. Now, I didn't know there was such a thing as a Bigfoot audio specialist.
Yeah.
We could do that job, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm a Bigfoot audio specialist now. Sure.
There you go. That's right. So, so the Bigfoot audio specialist listened to it and did the same process of elimination, which is not necessarily a scientific method, but nonetheless, that's what they did, and said, this is the second best Bigfoot recording we've ever heard. So that says to me, Mr. Curious, I wonder what the best recording was. Turns out it's also in Ohio, about 50 miles from here, 50 miles south, in an area called Salt Fork. Now, Salt Fork is like the paranormal ground zero of the state of Ohio. It has UFO sightings, and it has more Bigfoot sightings than any other part of our state. And so, same thing. Somebody I think this was a couple of guys who were out hiking, and they recorded it. And they both sound the same to me, to my untrained ear, but it's considered to be the best. Now, so that's two. That's top 1, 2. Where's the third one? The third one is also in Ohio.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And 50 miles in the opposite direction, 50 miles west, there's a park called Mohican State Park.
Mm.
and a couple of Fourth of Julys ago, a Bigfoot researcher. Okay, so she was more legitimate, I would say, than
Hmm.
the other two. Also had recording equipment out. Fourth of July, she waited until the fireworks went down. She went out to enjoy the quiet, and she heard not one but two Bigfoot. She heard calls coming from
Oh,
two
call
different.
and return. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So she recorded it and did the same thing. And the specialist said that it sounded like it could be a mother and calling to a younger Bigfoot to stay out of trouble or come get something to eat or whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So that gives three of the best calls. So that says to me, maybe Ohio it should be higher up on the list than Washington State, which is what everybody
Mm.
says, oh, Pacific Northwest. So I did another story um, where over about a 3-week period, there were Bigfoot sightings starting in Michigan, which is northwest of Ohio, and they slowly followed a path down to
Mm.
about the middle of Ohio, and then crossed over Ohio and went into Pennsylvania, which looks to me like a migration. In fact, I think it was it may have been in the spring. Um,
Mm.
so, that's what we do in this business. When we don't have bones or fur or anything else, we infer this could be, it certainly looks like a migration path through Michigan, Ohio, which are all heavily wooded, lots of farms, lots of things that a creature could
Mm.
eat, lots of places to hide. Um, Michigan, especially, Michigan is even denser than the other two states. So um, I hadn't seen that theory anyplace else, so I take credit for that one.
I
I
think
never
that's a.
I watched. Yeah, I never saw a reverse, where like in the wintertime there was
Where it went
going
back.
back up again. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
But I suppose less
so
people would be out in the winter to witness such a thing.
yeah, I'll be in the opposite direction. That's
Yeah,
right.
in the
And
opposite
I may have
direction.
it backwards. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's a strange correlation there with this British big cat phenomenon that we investigate all the
Oh,
time.
I love
It's
it.
great.
Yeah,
Some of these animals seem to have about a 50-mile or more radius. So, the
sure.
beast of Exmoor, descriptively and behaviorally, I suppose, for what's been recognized so far, could also be the beast of Bodmin. It could also be the beast of Devon and Cornwall. At least two
Sure.
or three of them could have similar territories. There's been sightings also all over Wales this year. My sister-in-law, my two nieces, even saw one whilst driving the car. She has no skin in the game,
Huh.
never heard of it before, and she had this sighting. And my brother said, "Hey, Andy knows about this stuff. Give him a call." And of
Yeah.
course, like anybody that didn't have skin in the game, her sighting was something like it looked like a big female lioness, but all black. So great. 10 minutes in observation, no photo, no camera.
Right.
We just
Right.
drove off because we couldn't stay looking at this thing. We had to go home.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was her normal person reaction, which is a normal reaction.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
these creatures seem to be, these different beasts of each area seem to be the same beast in many cases. And I think your migration theory there with Bigfoot would match. There's not a lot of them, but if they are moving
Yeah.
over a period of time, it would explain the disparate sightings, the lack of sightings you're around in certain
During
places.
certain
You're moving
periods of
through, and
time.
which I'm sure
Yeah.
you thought of, but it rang a bell to me.
Well, okay. You mentioned Nick Redfern,
Mm.
my good friend at Mysterious Universe. He looks at the many of the creatures as paranormal beings. He
Mm.
looks at a bit Loch Ness Monster. I think he's done a number of stories where he said that it's a paranormal being. It comes
Hmm.
from another dimension or another space, and moves back and forth. And the jinn, the genies,
Mm.
that's
Mm.
he talks about that. I don't know. What do you think? Would you
Um,
consider the cats might be paranormal?
I think the problem for me with that is that, and this goes on to another theory I have about in our non-religious or with the lack of corporate religion in our modern society, we are adding new pseudo-religious philosophies to the things we're interested in. So that's one of my ideas on why people have spiritual, pseudo-spiritual or philosophical ideas attached to some of these creatures. They could be paranormal, but we've also attached something that has a sense of belief or a belief system to them, like paranormal creatures. So there's one thing. On the second point, it troubles me to explain unexplainable phenomena with more unexplainable phenomena. It troubles me, and I should at least do everything in my power to first explain away its physical presence and say, well, okay, we searched the lake all year round. We devised all of these systems to find the beast, yet we didn't find it. But, you've got sightings of it catching and eating fish. Nearly all of the sightings that aren't mid-loch are around the Seven rhythm mouths around the loch, and where the fish come into deep water and are suddenly vulnerable. And that's something that's also noted with other lake monsters in the UK and some other places around the world. So that doesn't seem like paranormal behavior to me. It just seems like elusive predator behavior. And predators keep out of sight, as we all know, because that's how they catch their prey. And when you've been to the loch, you said a lot of money comes with the Loch Ness monster. It really does, a lot of tourism, but it's still pretty pristine. There's hardly any illumination around this place. Most of it's still cut off from sight. There's only a little bit of access, and a place like Loch Morar is even worse. A third of it you can't even access at all, except by boat. So that to me says, yes, there's space for such a living creature to be there. There's definitely food, but as to whether some prehistoric survivors hung on or some unknown seal or amphibian, I don't know what it is. I haven't got a clue. I just don't think it's a ghost at this point in time.
Oh no, that's another one. The ghost of dinosaurs.
Yes, I mean,
I've heard that theory as well.
I think that's Nick's theory. Oh no, but it's a theory he's put forward anyway.
I know he's put forward. He's put forward. Yes,
and I mean, I love his books. I love his work, and as somebody, I suppose, coming into this from an official point of view later in life, having read his books all these years, they've been great guides. But because I have a religious philosophy background. I'm married to somebody else with a similar but different religious philosophy. I see how we can both experience the same events and come away with different perspectives on what happened from a religious point of view. There's a real great teacher. It's a great teacher about perspective and how it taints everything we look at. It really does.
It does. Well, I tell people, you need to believe in something. Everyone needs to believe in something. If you don't, you really need to find something. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what it is. From my joking standpoint, I always say I try all different churches. Throw something in the basket. You don't know. That might be the right church. So do your thing and then just cover all the bases. But if you think about it, angels is my favorite example. So many people believe in angels. We believe in their guardian angel that sits behind us when we're driving home drunk. What kind of God does that? Who comes up with this kind of thing? But we believe, there's so many people that believe in angels. So there's been studies on Catholicism, for example, is probably the prime one, that Catholics are more likely to believe in UFOs and aliens than non-Catholic, or other religions, and that's primarily based on stories like that, on angels, on the biblical stories of things
lots
coming
of similarities.
down. And they're great stories. That's what they are. They're great. They're wonderful stories, and they were the way that people tried to explain the unexplainable. Did they include photographs in the Bible? No.
Very light on photos, actually, isn't it? Really light on photos. Yeah.
Have we? Sure. Even the archaeology. I love doing stories on archaeology, going to, the Middle East and back thousands of years to when
Oh yeah.
these were first experienced. What's my favorite one? The Sodom and Gomorrah. They managed to
Mm.
theorize that it was a meteor
Mm.
that inspired that story.
There's still
Um,
sulfur balls there in the where it was supposed to be anyway in the Negev. There's a large collection of sulfur balls in the cliffs
oh,
around
okay.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go back. So the archaeologists can go back and
Mm.
inspect the dirt, and they can look for artifacts.
Mm.
Have they found anything that is Ezekiel's chariot? Have they found the Ark of the Covenant? Have they found the
No.
Holy Grail? No, there's not. But they're looking for it. They're looking for it. If there's anything that they would find, it's that kind of stuff. So there's no photographs. There's no artifacts. That says to me, you can believe all you want. They're great
Mm.
stories. They're great stories. Um,
They
but
call
when
it
I talk,
belief for a reason, right? I mean,
that's right.
it's faith for a reason. Yeah.
And ultimately, our religions are to help us deal with death.
Mm.
That the bottom line for me is all religions help us deal with death. Um, so we're all going to die. So find
Mm.
something to believe in that helps you deal with death. If it's aliens and UFOs, well then okay, go ahead.
Here
Um,
comes the mothership. Are you packed?
that's right. That's exactly right. That's it. There you
Yeah, I
go.
know when they come for me, it'll be like do 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 do. Okay, now I mean, these things are important. I actually studied theology and Greek for my degree. I was going to be a priest a long time ago,
Oh,
and
okay.
I finally realized after finishing my degree, then after a very deep, I was a touring musician at the time, not touring as much, but still touring and living not a messy musician's life, but comparatively for a priest, a little bit of a messy life. And my priest said to me that the priest said, "Look, I know that you really love this and this is what you want to do, but I think you need to get this out of your system and come back and look at it when you're a little bit older, and the
Okay.
door will be open." And I thought, yeah, perhaps it's better to be a private hypocrite than a public one, because
Oh, another good one. I like that. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. But I've always had this interest. And I love when my wife is from the Middle East, so when we go to Israel, I've been under the temple wall, I've seen the Herodian stones, but also seen all of the building in different levels of that, the different stages.
Mhm.
The second temple, then the first temple remains below, then the Romans building on top, and then the Ottomans coming,
Right.
and all the bits, and then the Crusaders and whatnot. And it's a strange city because, yes, it all looks very, very old to us now, but it's basically like a patchwork quilt of different building styles over the
Yeah.
eras of the different people that have been religiously possessed enough to want to keep it. And you could say that the situation still maintains itself.
Oh,
My
you should
description of
say it. Yeah.
Jerusalem when
There's
I
no
went
put
there,
about
the
it.
old city, was that it's like inviting three friends to a party. They all hate each other, but none of them will leave because they're your friend, right?
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. That's
that's
good. That's
it.
a great
And
way of looking at it. Yeah.
yeah, it was really like that. And everybody really felt that strongly about it. You could tell, the Christian quarter and Muslim quarter, Jewish quarter, all that stuff, Armenian
Yeah.
quarter. And yet, yeah, even in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, they occasionally they were having running battles there, the different denominations, because they have turns to take care of it. You
Right.
think,
Right.
wow, even in that one place, well, you
Yeah.
essentially have the same faith. It's
Wow. Yeah.
it's hard runnings. Talking about the religious, let's talk about ghosts. Before we
Oh,
finish up,
okay.
I'd just
All
like to get
right.
your perspective on that because that to me, the ghost and ghost hunting shows are all over the
Yeah.
television these days.
Yeah.
Not only that, there's ghost groups everywhere. Got people here looking for the Highgate vampire and going to this ghost and that ghost. We went to a tour in this recent documentary, Bodmin Jail, which was a
Oh,
very
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and of course
Good
you
one.
go underneath the ground there, and the lady who took us to the tour, and she was a lovely lady, but it's used to taking people through the tour, and it's a set essentially. So it's a built
Yeah.
set, interactive, and just felt something go past my hair. Was that a voice? And then you can see
Yeah.
people get really agitated. One of our company even felt that she'd seen a face. And yet, to me, I was sitting inside a TV set. The walls were fake, made of
Uh-huh.
stones. It was a fake
Yeah.
village.
Yeah.
And there was the entertainer entertaining us like she does with every single person, every night, 5 days a week. And somebody felt it, not only felt it, but saw it. I wondered, what's your perspective on that? Are there ghosts, or is this revival? And the interesting ghost, is it causing people again to see things that they kind of want to see?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Good. I've done some stories um, that will answer your question partially to how I think on people who go into old homes, typical ghost homes, and begin to eliminate. Typically, they're contractors, they're building contractors.
Mm.
They go into an old home and they begin to eliminate all of the things that could cause a cold wind in your face,
Ah.
or a footsteps in the attic,
Mm.
or weird smells. And this is a service that people pay a lot of money for.
Mm.
And they will come in and they slowly but surely eliminate all the things that you think are ghost.
Wow.
Using science, using building, which is
Mm.
construction, which is a science. So I attribute an awful lot of ghost stories to that, and to the power of suggestion. I like
Mm.
that. There's a tremendous amount of power in the power of suggestion. If I don't know that a house is a ghost house and I go into it, I'm not necessarily going to see ghosts. But if you tell me, that house is haunted, well, when I hear a door slam, okay, I don't think it's the wind. I think it's
Mm.
the ghost. So now, having said that, as a spiritual person myself,
Mm.
I believe personally that there are things going on at another level that I do not have the ability yet to engage with. Okay, so those could be spirits. Those could be the spirits of the deceased. They could just be electricity. Like
Mm.
Tesla saw it as electricity. I don't know. I don't know.
Mm.
It could be that we are electric beings, and that soul that we talk about is from. We may find out when we die that we are. It's all scientific and it's an electric thing, and we just go back into the electric universe, and then pieces come out. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm very. I hate the word skeptical, but there's really no
Mm.
other word that describes it. I
Mm.
look for, when I go into situations like that, I look for, okay, well, it could be a ghost, but what else could it be? And
Mm.
I can very easily find other things that it could be. Now, if you want to believe it, that's fine. As I said, everybody needs something to believe in. If you want to believe in ghosts, you want to believe that a place is haunted, just don't hurt yourself by
Yes.
doing that. And that's the thing that bothers me. It's
Mm.
people do dangerous things. So that's A. And the other one is the shows that you talked about.
Yes.
I hate. I don't want to. I won't mention any names. But I believe that many of them take advantage of people, just
Mm.
like we're saying. The jail.
Yeah. Sensitive
It's
people. Mm.
it's a set. Now,
Mm.
now the other thing, I love ghost stories. I absolutely love ghost stories. I love when the jail is to go back to the jail. I did a story about that maybe a couple of years ago, when maybe it reopened. It
Mm.
may have reopened and remodeled. What a great history! It goes
Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
maybe the 1600s. All the people that were executed there, the secret plots that were
Mm.
going on there, and the various warring factions that used it. I love that kind of stuff, because that tells you, that builds the layers, as you were saying, the
Mm.
physical, builds the psychological layers of, well, this this could be, if there's a ghost here, it could be that guy who was hung in front of the jail, or it could be the person who was murdered in the basement, or the one that was shot when they were escaping. I don't know, but I love those stories. That just tells you that so much happened there. And it just reminded me, I have this another theory. And since we're talking about religion, one of the big religions in the United States is sport. I think it is in Great Britain too. If we talk about
Yes,
English football,
perhaps the primary one after drinking.
yeah, that's right. One or the other, maybe both.
And they often practice them together. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So in the United States, it's football as well, but in particular, college football. And I was doing some research on ghosts, ghost stories, as a matter of fact, around college football stadiums, and I thought that there would be something, and there was. But if you think about it, every Saturday in 30 or 40 places around the United States, there are 100,000 people in a small, tight location, and they're all screaming. They're all just so hyped up about this game. The physical and psychological energy that's centered there is unbelievable. If there's something beyond us, for sure, they must be leaving some of that essence in that stadium. And I found many stadiums, particularly the older ones, that had ghost stories of coaches or of a mistake, or I have no proof. Okay, just the stories that this religion that we have that comes every Saturday to worship in that bowl with alcohol and concentrates it so high. I just think that if that something there's something has to be there. If it's possible, there's an essence that's left there. Yeah.
So do you think
If aliens are coming, that'd be a good place for aliens to look,
Oh, wow. I mean, I think if they were considering invasion, the football game would at least put them off. I think that's when that screaming starts, those war cries start. In regards to your theory there on the stadiums leaving an imprint, those emotions leaving an imprint. So that's that seems to tie into the theory of residuals, or this pinhole camera theory, like the old grey lady that walks through a castle, or the battle that reemerges on certain nights under atmospheric conditions, Culloden and things like this. You see the soldiers walking. Does the environment become a pinhole camera of sorts, a rudimentary camera that replays the scene, high emotive scene, taken under the right conditions when those conditions are recreated? Could we be looking at something like that?
That's true. Oh, good connection between gray lady sightings, for example. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, they are imprint. You could look at it as an imprint, as a that's much psychological, but
film almost. It's
almost a film. Yeah,
it's almost a film.
Almost a film. You're right. And we're losing. How many people know what film is these days?
Yeah. It's like streaming, everybody, on a reel.
Yeah. Oh, don't get, I started in the computer business when we used punch cards and
wow. Okay.
and tapes. Yeah. Oh God, I've got stories those days, wiring boards, and
wow,
it's scary. And then this thing that's in my hand, this phone, has far more intelligence than rooms and rooms and rooms full of machines.
But not much of the intelligence is being extracted from these devices anymore, it seems, even though it's all in there. And
right.
Of course, I mean, I'm not old, but I'm not young. I'm 47. I'm in a middle zone, where I'm old enough to remember the before bit and now the after bit. So to both be happy for the convenience of not carrying 20 CDs in a bag or tapes or whatever, and that is nice, but also sad that I don't have an album cover that I could just hold and look at and talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, I appreciate both those sides, but yeah, definitely the convenience all the way. I'm for it. Just before we finish up, Paul, I just
Okay.
you know, these genres, cryptozoology, ufology, ghost hunting, fairies, all of this stuff, uh, this revival, this fandom that has emerged with them, and this never-ending online demand for sensational content. Do you think it impacts upon the academic study of these fringe phenomena, or does it encourage more people to get involved and add their dollars, so to speak, to the researchers that they favor?
Okay. The key word that you use there, Andy, and you are a master at keywords, I see that now, is
Thank you.
research.
Mm,
Um, I and I'd say this to people, people that I've known for years or that I haven't seen in years, and they say, "Oh my God, you're writing about UFOs and all this stuff." And I said, "Whatever happened to the comedy business? What, which was a very
you
good
say I'm
business."
still in it, right? I'm still
Yeah,
in
and
it.
in a way, in a way. But what I say is that had I known
Yeah.
maybe 20 years ago rather
Mm,
than 10, how big ufology and cryptids and the paranormal world and
mm,
ghost was, I would have gotten into it sooner.
mm.
Uh, because I could have done more things. Maybe I could have made a little more money at it as well. But
Yeah.
but I could have done more things. Um, I think that um, what we're expanding our exposure to all of those things
Mm,
via cable television primarily up until now, and now maybe more the internet and TikTok and videos, but really cable television introduced the world to, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens
mm,
and looking for Bigfoot and all those things. So I think that's good that more people are aware that this stuff is going on around
mm,
us. Um, the bad news is that those and this is my own opinion. Many of those shows are not research.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
that's what we're not getting is research, scientific research. Um, where you look for you look for evidence and
What was that
you
word again? Sorry, that
yeah, that's another word.
evidence.
So it's I think we're losing that, and we're losing that in a lot of areas. I think we don't do enough research in the political world and
Mm,
in other in the business world and in the
mm,
technology world. We're losing research. When I was coming up in the computer business, in business in general, there was a department that many large corporations had called research and development,
mm,
and that's what they did. You don't find those departments anymore. You don't see
mm,
people aspiring to go into R&D, research and development. Development won, research lost, and
mm.
development is how much, what makes us the most money. So I think that's my explanation. I don't know. It really is growing. It's not
Mm.
shrinking. It's growing.
No, I see
There are
that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, more conferences. I don't know how it is in England, but there's so many more conferences um, that specialize. Now they're
Mm,
special. There's ghost conferences. There's Bigfoot. There's cryptid. There's
mm,
UFOs. Um, that's good, um, but again, the research and the other complaint that I have is that uh, one of the reasons why I enjoy doing what I do at Mysterious Universe is looking at news stories, seeing what's new happening. What's the
mm,
latest Bigfoot sighting? What's the latest beast in England? What's the latest UFO? Is We keep rehashing many of the old stories,
mm.
and the reasoning behind that is, well, they're still hiding the data from us. I don't know. Again, my own personal thing is look around you, look around. The people that are hiding that data are people just like you and me.
Yeah.
Okay, if it was you and you were in that room and you saw this stuff, you'd go running out the door with it, whatever you could grab onto, and find the first person that would pay you $1 million and say, "Look at this!
Exactly.
This is it." No one is doing that, and
No,
we're
I know, I know. There's no
it,
cover up. There's no cover up. And people said that here about big cats. I said, there's no cover up. They just can't find them. They're elusive predators that aren't supposed to be here. Maybe there's not as many as we think. They're spread over a wide area, and
yeah,
they just can't find them. Same with Bigfoot. Government aren't keeping it under wraps to protect the logging industry. In today's environment, if there's anything they could do to shut off more forests to the public, they would do it.
yeah,
This Bigfoot would be a
exactly.
boon to them, not
Yes,
a hindrance.
yes.
They'd love it. No, they're just not interested. And the same with the British government. It's not that they're hiding these things from us. They just don't really care. And they're a bit feckless. And that's incompetence is normally the answer, I
Yeah.
think. I think we'll leave it there, Paul.
But
But
that doesn't
just
mean you should stop looking. That doesn't mean you should
exactly,
stop
no,
looking.
you should
It's-
never stop looking either.
Yes.
I just wanted to get everybody to to find your materials, your sites, everything you're involved in. Just give us that. Where can they go and find you and get involved?
Oh, sure. Okay. Go, Mysterious Universe is at mysteriousuniverse.org. And you can look up my article. Now, we do have a paywall now, so you get a
Mhm.
certain number of free articles. At the bottom of my articles, there's my short biography and a link to my podcast.
Mhm.
If you don't want to do that, my podcast is my platform is newclevelandradio.net. Easy way to remember it. That's where I'm at, the newclevelandradio.net. All the instructions on how to get to the podcast are there. We're on YouTube and all the other stuff. So all the platforms you can find us there. Those are the two easiest ways. My name is in a lot of books, but they're not paranormal books. They're joke books. I've written a
Okay.
number of joke books and trivia books. Many of them are out of print. But if you Google me, you find all kind of weird stuff that has nothing to do with UFOs. I'm hoping by the end of this year to have a couple of paranormal books available. With some of the stuff like I talked about today, so some of my theories and some of my favorite stories. So look for that. Andy, you're on the top of the list. When I've got a book to promote, I'll make sure I talk to you first.
Talk to me.
And
I will plaster it everywhere, and I'll also buy it because I am a collector of books, and I'm an enjoyer of your articles. Have
I've
been for
lost your
many
sound.
years. Ah, okay. No, I'm still here. Am I back?
Oh, no, it
No.
might be on my end. Might be on
Okay.
my end. There we go. Technology.
I'll wrap it up then. All right, let me just
Oh
clear that.
well. All right, good place to
Can
sign
you
off
hear me
then.
now?
Yeah.
Am I back?
No. Nope.
No. Okay, that's fine. I'll
Nothing.
sign off
No.
in that case. I'll sign off. Paul, it's been really great, and I'll post this. I'll put all of the links in, and thank you very much for coming on.